For once, from my own personal point of view, for once, it's not boxing that is a shambles of world sports. No, no.
Yeah, your second love.
Mate, I'm sat here quite smug. You know what I mean? Yeah. Well, I'm not sat here quite smug at all because
none of us are, mate. None of us are.
It's been kamikaze this week, hasn't it? I know that obviously yourself and Andy have covered this extensively on the sports bar throughout the course of the week, and I've no doubt the backlash from the fans has been tasty to say the least.
Yes, it's been a bad week for football, and in particular the 6 clubs that have embarrassed and shamed themselves. Really, my club is one of them. I was at the game against Brighton on Tuesday when the news broke, and I could hear the Chelsea fans outside Stamford Bridge, and when the news broke that Chelsea, Man City, and then eventually every other club followed suit, it would appear. Pulled out. It was all the gantry would talk about, and before that, it's all the gantry could talk about.
Yeah.
It was such a mess, and you looking back at it when you think about I was working here on Sunday afternoon when the news broke, and when I read the statement, I didn't fully grasp what I was reading because. We've seen this before. This is not Project Big Picture, of course. That's something that we've heard about, and there's so many other versions of it. When I read it, I didn't fully grasp what I was reading. I thought this was just another plan, but eventually it transpired that this was not just a plan. This was planned, and it was hatching. And Catman, it's been an embarrassing mess, unfortunately. And I was one of those that was. I just cannot believe. I don't think, and I'll say this again, I said the other day, I don't think a European Super League is actually a bad idea. I think there will be one. Yeah. And I think it's how it looks. And what does it say to the rest of the clubs? Who gets in it first? How is it structured? But to have a tournament, a competition, league, whatever you want to call it, where you cannot get in. There is no sporting success that gives you the rewards. How can that be? I have no idea. And we're still digesting. But anyway, I was at Stamford Bridge on Tuesday, and I was there to work for Chelsea TV. The game felt irrelevant, bizarrely. It did. It was a bizarre, really odd scenario. But there will be, no doubt, Catman, the fallout has not finished.
No, not at all. One of the most heartwarming things is obviously listening to talkSPORT throughout the course of the week and seeing fans from all different clubs up and down the land united in their disgust and dismay at what was being proposed. And obviously we've seen marches from various fans on various games throughout the course of the week. Fans coming together, Liverpool and Leeds fans coming together outside Ellen Road, and obviously what we saw at your place later on in the week in the Brighton game, where fans came together, they heard their grievances, they allowed their voices to be heard. And it seems that clubs have heard those voices. They've heard the disgruntled nature of the pundits that have been on TV and the pundits on the radio, and they've come to their senses and backtracked. It did feel very, very similar to the time that me and my mates decided to organise a stag do to Vegas without consulting the wives. You know what I mean? It was one of them types of moments, mate.
Yeah.
But there was a bit of backtracking, and we got to the right conclusion in the end. But then as the dust has settled on it, Jane, I don't know where you stand on this, but as the dust has settled on it, I've started to try and analyse how much power, how much say do fans now, in the modern day, in the modern game right now, and especially in the Premier League, maybe not so much down the food chain, but in the Premier League, how much say do fans actually, genuinely, really have? Yeah, we kicked up a stink in the week, and it seems, on the face of it, that it's the fans that change the minds of these super clubs. But did they really? Did they do enough at that point for it to be, drowned forever? Or will it be back? Will there be another revise of this? Will the greed take over these people once again and try to ebb our game away from us even further? How much control do fans really have, mate?
Well, control or say. There's various different ways of wording this, but fans have a massive influence, huge, as has been proven and shown, and the fans. I don't remember hearing one positive word about this particular project. I don't remember hearing anyone that thought this was a good idea. No one. Sometimes you might hear a voice saying, it might be out of work. None of that. None. So it was a bad idea from the get-go, and the clubs, I think, underestimated the fans, and as has been proven in the past, that football clubs take fans for granted. And over the last year, and I said to Andy last night, my position on all of football now has really shifted over the last year and what was experienced over the last 3-4 days. I think football needs to have a reset. I think football needs to have a big look at itself. I don't know whether it will. It probably won't, because football has proven to be recession-proof and COVID-proof. But I think this is quite a line in the sand moment, and I think football needs to have perhaps a brief check about how it conducts itself. But it won't. It's not going to happen, because in 6 months' time, let's fingers crossed, and God forbid God willing, that football fans will return to stadiums. And once that happens, this will all be forgotten, I fear. And I don't think that fans, what they've done and achieved, I'm not so sure long term it's going to prove to be a great deal. I fear that. I fear that this moment, it's just a moment. And I think long term, I think the status quo will return, and I think football clubs will behave and act the way they feel is necessary for the best of their football club. Yeah. And
it feels to me that the majority, and I can only really speak from what I've observed in the Premier League, okay? It feels to me that fans aren't treated as fans. They're treated as customers. They're treated as statistics, They are, as we all know, people who have loved football clubs for such a long period of time. They are the lifeblood of the community. Football clubs are beacons of community. They're the place that people go at the end of the week when they've had a bad week at work, It's the light at the end of their week, the light at the end of the tunnel. It's the maybe, you might not get light from your football club. You might get despair, but at least you feel some type of emotion. It's the place that you go for social and some type of feeling at the end of the week. Whereas now it feels like those places that we're going to have become businesses. They've not become our social places. They've not become our places of respite. They've become these massive conglomerates, these massive businesses run by people that aren't like us. Back in the day, mate, when I first started supporting Blackburn Rovers, Jack Walker obviously took over at one point, but before Jack Walker, I knew the guys that were running the gaff. They were on the bus going to the game, you know what I mean? They were the local people that were connected to the football club, so therefore you could have a chat with them, say, hey, what's going on here? Are we getting such and such a player or whatever? There was a more local feel and a more local, I know it's only Blackburn Rovers, we're not a massive club, but it's a local feel and local community feel, and you felt like you were connected properly to your football club. I don't know any fan that feels that they are properly connected to their football club anymore, and that's dangerous. Football fans need a say in these beacons of community that have been there for hundreds of years.
Yeah, but that's gone. Those days have gone. They are, I remember going to Stamford Bridge when I was just a teenager. With my, I'd go there with my dad, I'd go with my mate. Those days are finished. They've gone. And they were good days. Don't get me wrong. They were fabulous days. And any football fan remembering those days, certainly when I went to Chelsea, early 80s and mid 80s, and those days were fab. But
can we get those days back?
No, we can't. No, we can't. Those days have gone. Certainly at the very highest end of football. And to be honest with you, football has evolved and it's moved on. And there are some parts of football that I think are really improved. Now, the Premier League back in 1992 was the moment that, probably led to this, the beginning of this European Super League that we've seen over the last, 3 or 4 days.
It was a corporate movement.
Yeah, it was. And I think that's been brilliant for football. Now, there are certain parts of football that fans will hate and despair at, and the money in particular. But unfortunately, the vast majority of us are to blame. You've got Sky, right?
Yep.
Okay, I've got Sky. We all watch football on Sky. Now, you can argue, well, unless you go to Sky, you can't watch it. Or BT, Setanta was one of those. Amazon's a new player in that game. Well, I think we're all to blame. We all want, when the transfer window opens in June, in July, sorry, we all want our club to spend money, don't we?
Yep.
Yeah, we all want to spend, and we want our club to buy the biggest player that our club can afford. We want them to go in with the biggest way. We want the best player. Who doesn't want, there's, of all the big heads in this country, all the big six, all the dirty six, whatever you want to call it, and the other clubs across Europe, they all want Haaland, yeah? If they paid him £750,000 a week and signed him, How many fans would protest?
No.
You know, we've got to look at ourselves and what we want. I'm not even sure there's a right answer here for how football moves forward. I'm not sure there is one answer. But I think football needs to have a look at how it's... Because the reason that this European Super League came about, I think, ultimately, is to pay players' wages.
Yeah, 100%.
That's the number one aim, is to get the best players and pay their wages. I mean, what's that? Like I said, my position on this has really shifted over the last year, plus what's happened over the last... To not be at grounds where there's no fans, it's heartbreaking, Catman. I'm lucky enough to be there. I've said to Andy last night, I'm lucky enough to be there. I feel so privileged. I'm so lucky. Yet this happens during a pandemic. It's shocking. Honestly, it's absolutely shocking. Words fail me as to who thought this was a good idea. Honestly. Well,
it's businessmen. Businessmen thought that this was a good idea, and people without the emotional connection and an emotional affiliation to the businesses that they own. That's maybe where we need some type of fan representation at boardroom level.
Never happened.
Because, well, if you think about it, yeah, I can understand not having an emotional connection to business decisions. I can understand that totally. You need to have a cold head, you need to make business decisions in the cold light of day, and you need to be doing it on facts and figures on what is best for the business going forward. But football isn't a normal business. These football clubs, like I said, are beacons of society with emotional connections. As I was listening to something Graham Souness was saying the other day about, listen, I've got my season ticket here, and before me dad had it, and before me granddad had it. There's heritage, there's history connected to these football clubs. Fans will be here for years and years and years and years. They'll be going generation after generation after generation. That needs to be protected. And listen, I conclude that what you're saying, it's a business now. The corporate game is here. So therefore, we've kind of got to wave bye-bye to some of our rights that we now no longer have because we want, for example, football on our TV every single night or whatever it may be. Okay? So we conclude that. But there's got to be then some type of fan representation at boardroom level to protect the safeguard of our football clubs going forward. Otherwise... These fellas are doing this again, man. They're doing this again in 6 months or a year's time. They'll come and they'll go, right, okay, it didn't work last time. What if we did this? And we go around the back door and then all of a sudden we get what we want. There needs to be somebody in there. There needs to be a buffer in there that is purely there for the football club and not the business.
Just pure romance, that, Catman. It's never going to happen, and it's never going to work, in my opinion. It's just not going to happen. I don't see how a fan who is emotionally attached to that football club can see a business deal, because it'll be about what the fans want and what the fans want and what the football club
They've
wants.
got to have a voice, though. I'm not saying that they're the buffer, they're the stopper or whatever it may be. They've got to be the sound.
How loud is that voice? How loud?
It's at boardroom level.
Yeah, it's not. It's just not good. It's a great idea. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. What I'm saying is it's just never going to happen. It's just not going to happen.